Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about testing. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick, is a junior on his first job expected to know how to do testing of code? I would say that every software developer is expected to know this, but there is a bit of a nuance to this that I think that you should know about. So this is one of those things where, how do I put this in a delicate fashion? This is one of those things where you need to know about it, but you don't actually have to be good at it for the average job. So I will go as far out and say, and you're very welcome to send this to any guru, any person who claims otherwise, that testing is industry standard and like all of this stuff, and I will tell you this. Yes, it is popular opinion, and it's the biggest, fattest lie there is in IT. I usually make the analogy to, it's like when you go to your dentist when you're not so good at brushing your teeth, and you say that you brush every day and you floss and you do all these things, and maybe you do one of those things. It's a lie that everybody agrees on. What do I mean by that? I mean that every single place of work which claims to be a serious software company and so forth, some of them don't. Actually, quite a lot of companies, especially if you go down to like the lower levels, like agencies and stuff like that, uh, companies who don't really do serious level IT, they don't really care about the testing. They care, if you ask them about it, they will say that they care. That because fundamentally people associate the knowledge of unit testing or integration testing or end-to-end testing or whatever type of testing you're doing with quality of software, which means that, of course, it's like asking, any retailer, does your products have quality materials? There's not a single one of them is going to say, no, actually, you just buy garbage. Everybody's going to say that yes, they do. If you ask an interviewer, if you ask a person working or whatever, you will likely hear something of that flavor, that every company does it and everybody cares about it and so forth. You might find one or two honest software developers out there who say, yeah, we do it, but we're not really doing it. That's an honest answer right there. For the average company, that is the honest answer. The honest answer is that you need to know it because the people who are the gatekeepers for your job, they care that you know it in some cases. Similar to how I've told you about, in a sense, you need to know, usually like the skills that you need in the job are slightly different from this LeetCode thing that some people use, because LeetCode challenges are not really a good reflection of what you're going to do on the job. But some of the gatekeepers are the people who, like, they have this idea that this is how I should evaluate you as an individual, therefore you have to jump through this hurdle. It's the same thing with testing. I have worked and I work with tons and tons and tons and tons of software developers, and I can tell you for a fact that the testing that they do, if they do it, may not be up to scratch. I work on systems all the time that fail for obvious things that you can fix with different testing strategies and so forth. It is a bit of a passion area for me, or it's not just a passion area, but it's an area of expertise for me. This thing like quality assurance of a system, not as a QA, but as a software development process. How do you actually create a sustainable software strategy for an entire team and for not just one developer or for one group of people, like the entire delivery process? How do you secure that? In a sense, I like to say that I try to specialize in understanding how to set up an efficient factory, because in this little analogy of mine, the quality of your software is very similar to the quality of a product in a factory. If you have a shitty delivery pipeline of, like, if you don't have assembly lines and like you have something that doesn't work within your factory, the end product is going to suffer. Therefore, testing, as an example, is one layer of that system. It's not the whole thing, but it is a part of that, and that's why it's an important step. But the reality is that if you have some part of your process, if your factory is like, if you're building a car, for example, it doesn't matter if you have people who are really, really good at making wheels, if the steering wheel is broken all the time, because it's the sum of all the parts together that makes up the end results. And most companies, as I said, this is just a checkbox for them that you should know about testing. And people will ask you, are you writing unit tests? Even your tech lead, most likely, even your CTO, like whoever does it, like they will have on average no fucking clue whatsoever. If you're writing tests, if you're doing test-driven development, it's basically impossible to check if you know, like you should know about the concept, but they're never going to check. They're never going to figure it out because most of them don't have fuck all knowledge of how to do it themselves. They know about it, but they don't actually do it all that well themselves. And the best part is some of them are going to go, oh, what's your code coverage and so forth. Like these are concepts that you will need to know about. As a junior, it really is enough that you know what automated testing is and how to write tests. But as I said, you don't really have to be all that good at it, because that, like, which is the funny part. It's like we we evaluate software developers, or we try to evaluate software developers based on how good they are at writing code, because we acknowledge that writing code well is a talent and a skill. In other words, you can be at different levels. But we don't do that with the testing. That's just a checkbox. Do you know how? Because if you're good at writing code, therefore you must be good at writing efficient tests, which is not true. Not even for the seniors who are 20 years into their career. Because I work with them all the time and I see it all the time. The classic one is that, oh, a senior after some amount of years creates a bug, goes in, fixes it in 5 minutes, problem is back 2 days later, because like, or another problem pops up, another problem pops up. They seem to be this person who just produces and fixes things all the time, and all I think about when my stakeholders say, oh yeah, this guy is really, really efficient, he just keeps on fixing all these issues that pop up, and I go, yeah, but it's the same guy who's causing the issues. Wouldn't it be great if he spent more time developing features rather than fixing stuff that he breaks when he fixes something else? So what I want you to take away from this is that yes, you need to know about testing, but I think that you have to understand that you should understand the big fat lie, which is that testing is something that we measure in the same way we do with software development quality, which is not true. Most companies have no real idea of how good their developers are at writing tests, how much they're if they're even doing it in some cases. This is especially true in front end. It's like a joke in my opinion that we test people for it, because we do, but we never, no one has, like, there's no metric in anybody's book checking, oh, are we actually doing this well, because it's not something you can evaluate basically, because evaluation of efficient testing requires knowledge of what actually testifies as a good development process and quality testing, which is not something you can break down into a nice convenient number at a higher level, because when you evaluate someone's software skills, you basically just base it on, do you deliver on time, does the system sort of work, etc., etc. You have these sort of vague metrics that you use to evaluate somebody's skill as a software developer. It's not usually the case with, say, writing tests and so forth. So if you learn how to write basic tests and so forth, which is expected by basically everybody in the entire industry, it's just, as I said, different companies care more or less about it, and none of them will have a very efficient way of evaluating how good you are at it. The one thing that can happen to you is usually that you work with a coworker who cares a lot about it, because you have these like fire soul type of people who really care about it and get really into the details, and if they look at things, then you're going to get some opinions on the way you write tests and so forth and so forth. But on average, it's a skill, it's literally a checkbox. Learn how to write tests, and basically I can tell you for a fact that after that step you're done the thing that is the bare minimum as a junior, and even all the way up to senior level software developers, because I meet more than a few seniors who have never done something more advanced than writing a single unit test or so forth, even though that is woefully too little knowledge to do serious software development at the sort of level that they are at. Have a great day.